The Siege of Port Arthur, the deep-water port and Russian naval base at the tip of the Liaodong Peninsula in Manchuria, was the longest and most violent land battle of the Russo-Japanese War. Port Arthur was widely regarded as one of the most strongly fortified positions in the world at the time. However, during the First Sino-Japanese War, General Nogi Mereski had taken the city from the forces of King China in only a few days. The ease of his victory during that previous conflict, and overconfidence by the Japanese General Staff in Japan's ability to overcome improved fortifications made by the Russians, led to a much longer campaign, with much heavier losses than expected. The Siege of Port Arthur saw the introduction of much technology used in subsequent wars of the 20th century, including massive 28 cm howitzers, capable of hurling 217 kg shells over 8 km, as well as rapid-firing light howitzers, Maxim machine guns, bolt-action magazine rifles, barbed wire entanglements, electric fences, arc lamp searchlights, tactical radio signaling, hand grenades, extensive trench warfare, and the use of modified naval mines as land weapons. Background: the Russian forces manning the defences of Port Arthur under Major General Baron Anatoly Stoessel consisted of almost 50,000 men and 506 guns. He also had the option of removing the guns from the fleet to bolster the land defences. The total population of Port Arthur at the time was around 87,000, which meant that a very high proportion of the population were combatants. Russian improvements to the defences of Port Arthur included a multi-perimeter layout with overlapping fields of fire and making the best possible use of the natural terrain. However, many of the redoubts and fortifications were still unfinished, as considerable resources were either in very short supply or had been diverted to improving the fortifications at Delny, further north on the Liaodong Peninsula. The outer defense perimeter of Port Arthur consisted of a line of hills, including Shaokushan and Takushan near the Tahoe River in the east, and Namakoyama, Akasakayama, 174-meter hill, 203-meter hill and False Hill in the west. All of these hills were heavily fortified. Approximately 1.5 kilometers behind this defensive line was the original stone Chinese wall, which encircled the old town of Lushun from the south to the Lunho River at the northwest. The Russians had continued the line of the Chinese wall to the west and south, enclosing the approaches to the harbor and the new town of Port Arthur with concrete forts, machine gun emplacements, and connecting trenches. General Stoessel withdrew to Port Arthur on July 30, 1904.